the countdown.
Oh yeah,
Welcome back
go
to
for
Bed
it.
Boys, your one-stop shop for all your energy drink reviews and performance stocks. I'm Christian,
I'm Brian.
and today we got another banger of an episode with a very special guest. We got Gabe Mason on the podcast, the GOAT. So, Gabe, what's up? Appreciate you having you on.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on as well. Thank you.
Now,
Yes,
Christian, before we start, I don't know if you caught this, but Gabe's got some swag on today.
dude, he's representing. That's the first thing I
He's
noticed.
I saw it immediately. Guys
Yeah,
for the brand.
he is for the
Um,
brand.
I
so for
watched
any
I watched like the first 5 minutes, sorry, Matt, of Matt's podcast from last week that just came out today. And you guys talked about the inception of the branding and the logos. And I was like, I think I have this in my closet, so I have to wear it.
Yeah,
That's
Gabe was
amazing.
also there for the inception of this idea.
Now,
Back,
Gabe was a lot more moderate with his caffeine intake. He was a lot smarter with it than we were,
Yep.
but he was still part of it. Back when we were constantly getting the white monsters shipped into the fridge in the office.
Yep. But not
Um,
anymore.
Not
Now,
anymore.
yeah,
now I'm
not
addicted to
in,
caffeine and energy drinks every single day, all the time. So
that's okay. Happens to the best of us at some point. Are you really a strength coach if you're not addicted to that or Zins or
It's
both?
it's like a badge of honor. I don't know anyone, truthfully, that's like been in the industry probably for over 5 years and like at least not even just to say like not even like terms of success, but like has longevity in the career that's like just raw dogging this job, you
Yeah, if
know?
you are, props to you. I don't know if that
Like
exists.
that's just like a recipe for burnout. At least in my opinion, with the long hours, lack of sleep, like constantly have to being somewhere, and like always, and what people don't understand is like you kind of always have to like be on. Like you don't get to just kind of like walk into a session and just be like, ah, go hit it, that kind of thing. Like, and Gabe, you're like the number one person when it comes to like presence on the floor, in my opinion. Like if you walk into a session right now at Shepherd and you don't instantly see you, you will know where you are probably on the floor if it's anything remotely the same way that you used to coach when you were at Elon, which now being the director, not to like tell everybody your business, but now being the director of your own program, I can only probably say that that's exacerbated in every single way because it's
yes,
exactly how you want it.
yeah, not only exacerbated maybe because I'm the director, but our facility is much smaller than it was at Elon. So my voice echoes a little tiny bit more, and the athletes have to know that I'm in the room. I try to make a presence as much as I can. They have to know that I enjoy what I do, and a lot of that is through vocal tones sometimes.
100%.
Now, this is probably the coolest thing, and like a lot of people like when you go through the industry you come across either coworkers or friends and like I was lucky enough to say that you're both of those for me, so I had spent a lot of time with you over our time together at Elon French when you were there. I mean, for anyone that you spend 10 to 12 hours in an office with each other every single day, right? Not only that, but then we would go eat dinner with each other 4 nights a week. We're spending countless like on the free time we're like, hey, let's go get wings and let's go do this and watch this game. Like that's a tight staff. Gabe, for you, like how does that kind of affect like the working environment, like that chemistry with the people that like you've worked with?
Yeah, I think it's much easier to work in an industry that requires you to be in a facility for long extended hours and see people day to day if you like them. Right. I think that's very, very much so a portion that deals with the longevity of where you're at and your career. A lot of people get in and out of the field. But holistically, I think having a positive attitude and a positive relationship with the people that you're around is unmatched for from a longevity standpoint and for longevity. And I think our staff at Elon, when we all worked together, was probably top one of one in the country of that, particularly like before Christian even got there, right? When Hunter Lakey and Andrew were still at Elon, it was still a 4 to 5 days a week. We're spending somewhere between 10 and 14 hours a day together just hanging out. And don't get me wrong, I think from a true life cycle standpoint, that always goes away after a peak. It will valley out. But again, Andrew and Hunter and I and you at that point in our careers, we were having a lot of fun being at the facility for 12 hours a day because you walk in and you see your best friends.
And you know, I think back to the time like there's videos like sitting on my phone, right, where it's like it's 8:30 at night. It for all intents and purposes, we should be gone by then. And we're in there like working out, we're blasting music, we're having fun, just cracking jokes. Like those are those points in the career when you're like, man, everyone else is like, we're still here. They're like mad about it when we're like, this is so much fun. Like we were just gonna hang out anyway. What's the difference if we do it here or not?
You know,
Um, but one of the things I kind of mentioned on that is that chemistry, right? And you always kind of search for those things when you're in a facility where you have a ton of coworkers, right? And like now being the director, it's a little bit more so just on you. But like I think back to like when we would coach like football in the summers, right? There is so much that goes on. And Christian, you might have seen this when you were the intern and it was our crew that was like the quote unquote paid employees, but there was so much like unspoken, just like levels of trust to where it was like, if that person maneuvers this way in this session or on the field or this or that, you just kind of I can't really explain it other than like the fact of saying like there's chemistry to that. So it's just like he's doing this, I go over here, we maneuver this way, and everything just starts to flow without feeling like you truly had to have like a 30-minute breakdown of like this is what the plan is. Like everyone just kind of knew and just it all like flowed together. And I think like that was like a big realization piece for me where it was like, when you get new people, and obviously Elon is a system where, we get people to go to better jobs, right? you know, Unfortunately, Gabe, you left, but you left you left for like one of your two of your two reasons that you wanted to leave for. When you came in, you said, "I'm leaving for two things. I'm either going to take full control of a department, or I'm going to work for a school that's blue and gold." And it happened that in that way. But French, when you were in the same spot, you were like you weren't constantly looking for new jobs. It was I'm gonna learn as much as I can, and I'm gonna leave when I'm given an opportunity that is the right fit. And a lot of people aren't in that position to do so. So yeah, kind of talk to me and get Gabe, French, both of you kind of add in on this, but like what made you realize you're like, this was the opportunity to kind of leave?
go ahead,
Gabe, you
Chris.
can
You
go.
got it.
Okay, I'll go first. I mean, for me, obviously, like I had a lot of like great advice from Gabe, Brian, everyone on the staff. We kind of knew that the position I was in wasn't exactly built for longevity. A lot of people in that spot stay for a year or less for the most part. Some people stay 3 months. Some people might stay 8. Um, so I started in August, and that was coming up on April. So close to almost a year I had been there, along with my internship. So it was kind of the point where I wasn't like itching to get out of there, but I was, it was kind of starting to cross my mind, like, okay, might want to start looking for something. And I know Nick is always, really everyone on our staff is always looking out for people, whether they're in that part time spot or if it's something like a job that one of the full time people would be interested in. Hey, this just opened up. Like, are you interested at all? So like Nick would do that. I know you guys would do that from time to time, and it was just like they weren't bad jobs by any means, but it was like to leave Elon, it was going to have to be something that I was like really gung ho about and excited about. Had a few of them that kind of like perked my interest a little bit, but nothing too crazy. And yeah, I remember it was just an all athletic staff meeting one day, and we were done, and Nick was like, "Hey, French, you want to go to the Dominican Republic with the Cubs, like for this amount of money and get your housing and stuff paid for?" And I was like, "Man, that actually sounds pretty sick." So he's like, "All right, send your resume to this guy." And for me, obviously, like I wasn't just gonna be like, okay, yeah, this is it, because I didn't know anything really about the job. But for me to leave Elon, the best part about it, and we talk about this all the time, is the people. You know, the relationships. Obviously, the people are super intelligent. Things are ran very well. You're gonna learn. So I wanted to be able to keep up with that. I didn't want to just go work with and for people that weren't going to be able to help me learn still. And that was what I found out pretty quickly, like through my interview process with the Cubs, was talking to Mark, talking to Blaine, talking to Steph, talking to all these people that I was going to have like direct access to. And I was like, well, these people are pretty freaking smart and they seem like good people, which are two of my biggest things. Um, so that was a big one for me. Baseball, something I'd never really been exposed to, which is kind of hilarious now that I'm now that I'm here. But I was like, well, it'll definitely be something new. Obviously, it's cool to say that you lived in a different country. That was kind of like a life bucket list thing for me, and that's given me like a lot of just perspective on just life in general. So it was kind of like the whole package for me. Obviously, the pay was better than what I was making at the time, and obviously, like um, they're taking care of housing and stuff. So it was like, all right, kind of a leap of faith, and it definitely wasn't easy leaving. I remember like one of my last memories is us talking about being in the facility at 8:30 at night. Was it was us three and Matt just bagging arms, just like hitting a crazy arm workout before we all went to Ferraras, like the night before I was about to leave. God, that was legendary. But yeah, that was those are probably my reasons for leaving. Obviously, like I wish, you know, I was just waiting for that thing to get to push to full time, hoping, waiting. But when that kind of opportunity came with the people that I would be able to work with, and you know, I knew I wanted to work in the pro setting in some extent at some point in my career. Didn't think it would be this early, but I was like, well, I don't know. I probably will never get another opportunity exactly like this. So just a leap of faith after I found all those things out.
Yeah, for me, it really, I don't even want to say that it was a decision based off of what was going on at Elon. And for the people that don't know this already, technically, Brian got me this job because Team Builder was the software that this university was using before I got here, as their performance coach, strength conditioning coach, had left in the middle of the year. So they were without a director of performance from January to May, right before I got here, and they were using the online platform that TeamBuilder provides to program for most of their teams. And through conversation, it kind of just came up that the current, again, at the time, our university was also looking for an athletic director. So we had an interim athletic director, and that interim athletic director was messaging people like Brian at TeamBuilder to ask about the longevity of TeamBuilder, to ask about what was going on within the software. And Brian and I were sitting at dinner essentially one day, and he was like, "Hey, are you interested in this Division II director of performance based job?" Um, and so, you know, you think about things like career progression, and really it comes, you know, 4 Ps. Everybody likes to talk about it. From a pay perspective, I don't really make that much more money here than I did at Elon. From a personal life standpoint, I loved my job at Elon. From a career progression standpoint, that's really where I think the differentiator was for me leaving Elon, not because I wasn't continually educating myself, not because of the staff that I was around, but at a certain capacity, and I'm willing to say this online, if you're looking to be in the football realm, your time is limited. You either put yourself in a position early on in your career as an intern under coaches that you know will get you a job to have success later on, or you find yourself looking for a way to get back into it afterwards. And Brian had mentioned the blue and gold, and that stems from way back in my childhood, way back. And that's just like a personal vendetta type thing that happened to fall in line with this university right now, and it's awesome. I was super happy about it. But when I got here and had an on campus interview, when I got to speaking with the coaches, when I looked holistically at what the big picture was, I thought there was a lot of things that I could do to both satisfy my own wants to be a director, but more importantly, make the people that had bet on me earlier in my career proud of the person that I am. And I can't talk highly enough about Nick DeMarco and Brian and Christian, the people that I've been around, even Jeff Jones, Shane Lantana at Arkansas State when I was there, my time at Arkansas Tech. And lastly, again, I have a twin brother for the people that don't know that, but Corey is probably the smartest person that I know, and he would refute that statement on the back end, but he's been one step ahead of me our entire careers in performance. I followed him to the field. He's the one that introduced me to all of this stuff, and he got a director job first. He got an assistant job first. He got a GA spot first. So, in a particular way, the satisfaction that came with going to a school that needed someone to come and make changes while also fulfilling the goals and aspirations that I had for myself was almost a no brainer, even though the aspect of leaving your family is hard. It turns into a 18-year-old deciding where they want to go to college again, right? What's happening? I'm leaving my family for the first time. I'm leaving people so that I can go discover who I am and make sure that the career goals that I have for myself are being attained. And whether or not that continues to happen, I will, excuse my language, I will damn sure try myself to make sure that that happens. And I will do everything I can every day to make sure that that happens and that this university feels the impact that I have. But it's more so than myself for the people that have done me right, the people that have bet on me, the people that have helped me along the way to make sure that they know that I appreciate them and I love them so much that I'm willing to do anything that I can to make sure that they made the right decision.
One of those things that you kind of mentioned was the opportunity, right, to make change, right? And a lot of people when they go and they interview for a job or they do like an on campus and they see the facilities, the setup, the scheduling, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, they look at it and go, "Ah, this is going to be tough. This is a lot of work." Whereas like you, and even just talking to you like during that process, you were like, there's a lot of opportunity to really make this good and improve these process. Like, so you looked at it from an optimistic standpoint of, I can make legitimate change that I can like essentially like rest my laurels on helping like turn this into something extremely great and making this from the ground up like what I want. Now taking over this position, like what were some of those biggest challenges, or I'd say, those pieces that you really looked at those optimistic standpoints to reform and make better? Like what were those pieces?
Sure. I mean, from the very beginning, I made it known to the coaches during my interview process that I wanted to have high expectations and high future outcomes for the athletes that I work with, the coaches that I work with. And in a certain capacity, I was looking to make this department the best Division two university in the country. And with that, there's a lot of things that have to fall into place for that to happen across all of the sport teams that we have. So, from a scheduling standpoint, when I first looked at the schedule, it's how do I make sure that both myself and our athletes aren't getting burnt out from working 6 a.m. to 9 p.m.? How do I make sure that every session that I have with these athletes is worth their while and worth my while? How do I make sure that these athletes are getting what they need from a training standpoint and from a relationship standpoint with me and having a place to go and push their limits and divulge in each other, divulge in the process, divulge in performance? How do I look at nutrition? How do I look at psychology? How do I make sure that me and the athletic trainers are in the right mindset together and have the right process for what's going on from a day to day basis, a communication based standpoint? And again, we got a new athletic director. So, how do I make sure that there's a strong relationship between performance and our administration so that the future looks bright for everybody in our department, including myself? And I think, again, during this interview process, it was very apparent to me that I was going to be able to make change. And even though some people might not have liked it from the very beginning, you try to set precedents for the type of person, the type of leader and the type of director that you want to be, and then let the rest flow afterwards. Let it come with time, let it come with relationships, and let it come with progressions. Because again, it's funny to think about, right? But people say all the time, you become, the five people that you spend the most time with in a certain way. And, that's one of the reasons why you guys and myself and Hunter and Nick and Andrew are all so similar, and my brother, and we all have very similar views. We just spent so much time together. And I spend a lot of time at the university still. And I hope that the athletes see that, and I hope that I can be a good role model to them by trying to teach them the principles of what it takes to be a good person after you finish college as an athlete. Because you could be on a high for 4 years if you're the best athlete, if you're a part of this team that has so much success, but what goes on afterwards and where do I want to go? um, it turns into making sure that the athletes have a great experience with me that also teaches them how to be what they want to be after college.
That's sick.
Deep stuff.
When I when I think about like the first, if regardless of if you know anything about performance or not, if someone sees you, Brian alluded to this earlier, if someone sees you coach a session, the one thing that they'll know pretty much immediately is that you care about the people that you're working with and for and the athletes that you're serving. How do you do that consistently every single day, like on a consistent basis? Does that also come back to trying to prove the people that did you well, kind of thank them in that way? Because obviously, like, anybody can do that for a short period of time, and you're still obviously working a ton of hours being a director. How do you have like a certain inspiration, or is it just like that's just what you do?
It's a little bit of both. I still talk to my brother every day, and in a certain way, right? He was at a Division 3 school that had more athletes, more teams, more coaches with more hours than me. So I can't really complain too much, which means that when I am on the floor, when I'm in those sessions, it's trying to make sure that I'm not looking from a negative standpoint at what I'm doing, while also trying to provide that best environment, that best resource, that best place for the athletes to continue to get better. I also, and this year, in the off season for football. Again, you get here and you're right in season. I had maybe like 25 kids at the max over the summer with Kara hours and NCAA ruling for Division 2. It happens, and a lot of those kids got to see me in my first time running a holistic football environment. So they saw me trying to create this environment that I wanted for them and I wanted for the team. But now that I'm here, and now that we finished a season, now that we're in this immediate off-season type of period, one of the things that I've really pushed for my athletes is the fact that if you truly love somebody, and if you truly want to see them be better, you truly want to see them achieve the goals that they want, that you won't let them fail. And that's how true relationships get built, through hardship, through tough conversations, and through immediate action. If you see somebody doing something wrong, because I love you so much that I won't let you do this to yourself or to the team. And like, again, even if it's long hours, even if it's not necessarily the easiest thing for me to talk to you about in the moment, looking into the future and looking at how it will impact you later on is much more important than whether or not you smile in my face when I'm telling you that you're messing up or that you're not doing right by yourself right now. In 35 minutes, you're going to forget all about it when you go to class, and then you're going to remember it the next time you go and do the same thing. So it's less about me trying to make sure that the kids are doing right by me. It's more so me trying to make sure that the kids are doing right by themselves. And you're turning athletes, and I say kids, as a joke, kind of, right? Because we're 22-year-old, 25-year-old at some point, right? End of COVID era. But how do these athletes transfer out of college and into humanity and into the real world? You better be ready for people to talk bad about you, and people to be mean to you, and people to give you the truth, whether you want to hear it or not. So that's the environment that I try to create, which hopefully in the end they see the benefit. But sometimes it's hard, and sometimes you have to deal with it, and sometimes it comes in and smacks you in the face. So how do you respond?
Truth hurts sometimes.
Yep.
Um, like you said, when you took the job and you stepped onto campus, you're kind of in that in season and then right into that like through off season with your limited account of hours, NCAA restrictions on Division II kind of programs. What what did that program look like when you're stepping in, and how did you kind of start to make those changes and implement the system, like kind of base practice that you wanted to? And what was the response from like the athletes, the coaches, as you started to make those changes into kind of what Shepherd football offseason looks like now?
Yeah. Um, again, I've been very, very fortunate with our performance staff and the relationship with our football coaches right now, and really my relationship with our entire sport coaching department in general, to where they've given me a lot of autonomy and ownership of the program that I want to run. It's really funny. Um, the other day, I was talking to one of our fifth year senior defensive backs, and he asked me because we just had a defensive back transfer to Buffalo, right? And Buffalo, the director of performance there is Ryan Horton, who was at Elon beforehand. So full circle on the back end, but he was like, Ryan is saying that he runs an Olympic based program. Gabe, when people ask me what type of program you run, what do you want to me to tell them, or what do we actually do? And I was like, this is the first time that I actually get to tell somebody that I run a sprint based program. And that's the only thing that I'm worried about. I want our athletes to be as fast as possible. And Brian and I have probably the greatest winner loser relationship ever, because I don't ever win, but we're always running in distances and competing, and I'll never stop competing. Um, and again, like looking at the program, trying to circle back on it, but like I'm a very sprint based coach. I think sprinting and learning from the track and field domain is something that provides athletes with a stimulus that is almost unmatched by anything that we could give them in the weight room, through Olympic lifts, through loaded jumps, whatever. It doesn't matter. Sprinting is the key, in my opinion. And so, without going like super in depth about what we do, and I will if you guys really want me to, we sprint 2 to 3 days a week, all the time throughout the entire year, depending on what's happening. And again, fortunately, me and our head football coach were able to sit down when I first got here and look at what our fall practice schedule weekly is going to look like, what our lifts can look like in comparison to those, how each of those days can build off of one another. And the world and the field of performance knows that we are forever adapters. And I'm not trying to tell the coaches what they need to do on particular days. I would rather adapt what I'm doing to make sure that our stimuluses match for the athletes, so we can get a true high low based model for us. Um, but that means that what happens on individual days gets matched with what I want to do. And so when I got here immediately in the summer, we worked from, again, simple to complex, from short to longer type distances. And I immediately tried to get this notion over to our athletes that what we do out on the field is just as important as what we're doing in the weight room. I love the weight room. I love building strength. I love building resilience. I have so many thought processes every single day about what goes on in the weight room and whether or not it's right and whether or not it's wrong. But the one thing that I think is right is we're going to run really fast. And we're going to do it consistently, and we're going to do it with recovery. And we're going to try to make sure that that is the main stake in our program. And a lot of the athletes responded to it immediately, because it doesn't always get done, especially in the very normalized football world. It's very much so squat, bench, clean. How strong are we in this phase? What do we need to do to continue to get stronger? And yes, you're going to have athletes that need to get stronger, that need to put on size, that need to spend a lot of time in the weight room. But again, what I tell recruits when they come in is it's my job to make you the best athlete possible. And a lot of those athletic intangibles are built through doing athletic things. And the most athletic things that we can do are done almost outside of the weight room. So when you look across when I first got here to now, I think the emphasis on those particular things has just gotten bigger for us, and to the point where right now we've been kind of impinged by weather over the last couple weeks. Unfortunately, West Virginia has been getting some snow and some ice and some randomized type snowstorms, etc. But we're on the field with me 3 times a week. We're in the weight room 4 times a week. When we get to the summer, that can even progress out to 5 days a week, depending on scheduling, depending on what we're doing. But I think that, again, the athletes, the coaching staff, and myself have really tried to push this agenda of being the best and winning a championship. And a lot of those championship based thought processes involve us being so good at the things that we need to be good at as a football player that we're going to spend a lot of time doing those things, which means we're going to spend a lot of time out on the field.
Well said.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I'm an AD right now, and you're just like, hey, this is what I'm trying to do when I'm coming in.
And
Um,
that's what it was. I like, again, the timing gates were a main stake when I first got here. We have to have these, right? I need to be able to build a competitive environment, which means I need a rank, record, and publish Tony Holler style capability to do that, where we're fresh, we don't burn and overcook steaks, and we're competing at all the time. We'll rank, record, and publish everything, and it turns into an environment of competition, and that's what you want kids to do.
Now, speaking on competition, right? There's a certain level of someone will get frustrated, have that aspect of like they're competitive, but it's almost debilitating. How do you kind of balance that? Like when they want to get better and they don't see the progress, like what does that conversation look like when that athlete comes to you? Because that's a conversation that inevitably every person in this industry, whether you're an intern, a GA, a director, an assistant, any piece, or even just coaching in general, you're going to have that conversation. Like, how do you approach that?
I try to tell our athletes that performance is a game of attrition, and building upon days is the most important thing ever. If you, and it really, I'll say this for every single coach out there, if every coach had a way to make a kid every single day better from a sprinting, jumping, running, strength standpoint, everybody would do the same program because it's guaranteed to work. And that isn't a thing, right? There's so many variables, there's so many options, there's so many opinions about the way that things work that inevitably you're going to have kids and you're going to have athletes that reach plateaus, right? That don't progress every single day. And so when that progression comes, the competitive nature of being an athlete is something that I try to continually bring out of them, where we're not necessarily just competing with each other, but we're also competing with ourselves. And when we don't see ourselves making progress, what else within my day, what else within my life could potentially be impacting this lack of building on myself, right? Where is my nutrition at? Where is my sleep at? How is my psychology? What does my relationship look like with me as the performance coach, with the coaching staff, with my friends, with my significant other, with my family? Because again, you wish that everything just continued to build and build and build upon everything, but there's a chance that you have a conversation that significantly impacts your performance over the next 48 hours. And it's just based off of verbiage, it's just based off of words. Um, and so trying to take this like holistic approach of what actually impacts training, and the answer is everything impacts training. It's not just training, it's everything impacts training. And so trying to be that positive leader, trying to be that program that kids want to be a part of means that when things don't go right, which they won't all the time, that you create an environment that kids want to continually be in so that those hardships are another stepping stone for them to get over. And that's again where competitive nature comes in. That's where conversations come in. That's where building relationships with kids come in. To where again, I probably use the word love more than anybody in the country right now. And for me, sometimes I think the word can get misconstrued and the word can be overused. But like the power of personal relationships with kids, I cannot stress enough, right? The power of telling some kid that you truly care for them outside of sport is unmatched by anything that we can do. And so when things go wrong, it's about, okay, what do we need to do to make sure that we're in the best position for success? And that's it, right? There's a lot of variables that put us in a position to be successful, but where are these variables at right now? And what can we do to make them better?
God, you're like a jacked Ted Lasso.
A philosophy book.
Um, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, just the level and thought process that that goes into, I think that kind of just forces into the amount of effort that like you kind of pour into each kid, right? And it's definitely a hard thing to scale when you switch from, when your time when you're at Elon, you're with women's basketball, women's volleyball, and football, right? That's a lot of athletes right there. But then, now you're at a point where it's every sport inside this entire program, which how many varsity sports you guys at? 22, 23?
15.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah, even more
overestimated
again.
for
Yeah,
sure.
it's okay. Overestimated.
But but 15, like you went from, 3 to 3.5, depending on how much time you ended up spending with either baseball or track and field when you just randomly show up to those sessions because you couldn't get out of the building. But 3.5 to 15, that's got to create a certain level of burnout, right? And I think a lot of people look at that and they're like, how does that happen? How does that happen? I think you got to be a little bit broken. You got to be a little bit broken as a person to just be like, this is something I'm so insane about, like loving and doing, and like the passion for not just like the job itself, but like the intangible aspects of like developing people, right? And I think that kind of goes back to like your relationship with Corey, right? Twin brothers growing up, always competing with each other. And then like even from our conversations that we've had, like when we first met to even now, like you always reflect back on those and like he used to just kill me and everything, and it would irritate me. And it's like, but you look back on it in the aspect of like not like a hatred for your brother, but like this, he pushed me, and like you're more thankful for that. So do you think like the aspect of like your relationship with Corey and that just competition like between brothers for 20 28 years, do you think that that really built into like how you coach?
I mean, I would be lying if I said that it didn't. Um, I would love to say that I've spent a lot of time watching Corey coach, but in reality, I haven't. Like, again, we lived together for really like the first year of college. And then after that, we split and we haven't lived together since. He went to New Mexico and I went to Arkansas and then to North Carolina and then back to Arkansas and then he was in Pennsylvania for a while when I went back to North Carolina and now I'm in West Virginia and he's in Ohio. Like there's so much that goes on um outside of our relationship that it's hard for me to say that the competitive nature is truly there, but there's always that internal drive that knows that he again like I have a very high expectation of my athletes. I really do. And this is like off topic kind of, but that high expectation is more driven from a high expectation of myself because I know that Corey would have a high expectation of me to be the person that we talked about both of us being to get to the place that we want to go. And it scales down with everybody that we've worked under, everybody that we've worked with. But the main stake is Corey is the reason why I'm in this field. And I'm going to make sure that he knows every time that we talk about it that he is that coach that I aspire to be, even if he would maybe say differently for the self. Um, but I can't speak highly enough about him and the things that he does, especially in comparison to me. So competitiveness, yes. Honor to be a portion of the family, to be related to a person like that, even more so, right? Want to be like that person, even more so. Um, want to make him proud, even more so.
And that little bit of your mother, who I can't I can't go this entire podcast without saying, I mean, just S tier
Yeah,
human being.
unreal.
Could not be like the cooler mom.
Yep.
You guys are spitting images of her, so
Oh yeah,
um
I'm a huge mama's boy. Cannot go without calling out the moms.
Shout out moms.
I won't say her first name on the podcast because she probably wouldn't like that, but I would.
Yep. How do you talk about like caring that much about athletes when you were the internship coordinator at Elon? How did you approach that? Because it's the same, but it's also a lot different. I mean, ideally you get to see the finished product of the end of the internship, but it's a lot more on, you know, the interns have to take that responsibility to learn for themselves too. So it's a little bit different in that aspect. I feel like it takes a lot of patience, as does coaching, but that on top of coaching, on top of trying to run, the best internship in the country,
Yeah.
what was going through your mind with that? How did you approach that?
Oh, I mean, again, I will reference back to somebody that did it before me for me to make sure that they were proud of the product that I was putting out afterwards. Like again, both Brian and Christian were interns for Elon in two separate ways. But the guy that was running the program, Jordan Newsma, who's currently with the San Francisco 49ers, like that's a man that I talk to on a bi-weekly basis still because I had such a good time at the internship that I wanted to make him proud of the product that I was putting out afterwards. And yes, there's a portion of being an internship coordinator that is okay, did I bring in the right people? Now when I was at Elon, I really, again, like I've tried to bring in as many people as I possibly could. I wanted our internship program to be as beneficial to as many people as possible, even if it made them realize that they didn't want to be in performance, and that's okay with me. But like again, Christian's internship class, we had 17 kids, if I remember correctly, and a couple of them dropped out, and that's okay. A couple of them aren't in the field of performance at the collegiate level. They could be in the private sector, or they could be a personal trainer. And a couple of them, like Christian French, have a better job than me now, which is sick. And that's awesome. It's great. I love to see it so much. Um, but again, it turns into one of those things where now Brian's the internship coordinator, and you just continue to try to put the best product out there so that it lives up to the expectations that the people before you had, that you had, to what the future had. And you're trying to make the next generation of coaches, which means that even if I'm tired on the day, I can't do something that would negatively impact their future. And that turns into tough love. The concept of love comes in again, right? Like you got 17 kids. I can't handle 17 kids all by myself. I don't even have a child of my own. Like I would be overwhelmed with that one right off the bat. So you got kids that are looking to you to be a mentor. And again, I think Jordan, when I was an intern, did a really good job of diverging the amount of interns and the amount of coaches on the staff to make sure that each intern got what they needed out of each coach, which means that you create some segments, you create some groupings, and you bring them in together. And like when we were on the staff, it was, hey, we have 17 interns. I'm going to make a group of 5 for myself, a group of 4 for yourself, a group of 4 for Andrew, a group of 4 for Cam, and make sure that when it comes time to have conversations, that each intern gets what they need from that conversation, which means it has to be a little bit more individualized. And if they want to bring it up in the group setting, they can. If they want to bring it up to the group as a whole, then we can. If we need to have a conversation about what goes on from a standpoint, great. There's so many resources out there to make sure that everybody gets what we want them to get out of the internship. That, again, even if it requires long hours, I'm going to make sure that these kids have a great time, that they view Elon as I viewed Elon when I came out of the internship, which was the best place in the country. And again, a reason why I came back to Elon after leaving was because I had such a good time. I enjoyed being around the people and I enjoyed the environment that was Elon Sports Performance. And again, like, as an intern, when you're trying to figure out whether or not you want to stay in college, whether or not you want to get out, where you want to go, what you want to do, trying to find a place that benefits you positively can be tough. Um, and, one of the reasons that I went to Elon as an intern by myself was because of the content that Nick DeMarco was putting out on social media. Because, like, this was happening during COVID. I was a GA in Arkansas, and I was like, I don't know whether or not I'm going to have a job after I leave. I'm going to do what I can here. I'm going to make sure the athletes have a great time. But looking into the future, what do I need to do to set myself up for success? Go find a mentor. And Nick was awesome. And Jordan was awesome. And Brandon Robinson was awesome. And Alex Brzeski was awesome. And Cam and I lived together when I first moved back. So, like, I can't say anything about that one. Um, so again, circling back, because I can friggin' talk forever, and I tell our recruits this all the time. I'm really sorry for just talking all the time, but, like, again, you pour out into people what you think maybe you missed out on from your experience. And so if I can be that person that provides our interns, that provides people with both a sense of self and a realization on what they want to do, and a friend, a mentor, some sort of positive experience, then I will, even if it's hard, even if it's long, even if it changes my day.
Yeah, that's
Sorry, long,
incredible.
long and hard.
Don't worry about that.
It's on the YouTube, so
Don't worry about that. Going off that, speaking of learning, it's what usually people go to internships to hopefully learn and get a job eventually. There were so many like ideas that we would throw around at Elon, like say the say the brain hypertrophy was immense at Elon, you could say. You're someone who's always like coming up with new ideas for training and you're always trying to learn stuff. What is your like thought process, or do you have a specific strategy, or is it just like you're excited to learn when it comes to thinking about new ideas for training? Where do you go to like continue to learn and get better each day?
yeah. Again, I think people are the best resource for learning. So conversation base is the number one. You can never go wrong. I would say just trying to reach out to people to have conversation with, but you can also not really go wrong by doing your research, right? Like, I spent what, it's February now, maybe like the month of January. If you guys know who Tony Villani is with XPE, he has his speed based style of training that he runs in his NFL combine prep. And, like, he put out a tweet one day that was like, hey, I normally sell this online 10-level program to people to use for their combine prep, and I'm gonna put it out for free for a month. And I was like, sick. My brother sent it to me. We went over it, and I spent, 30 minutes a day for the entire month of January watching between 1 and 2 minute clips of what he was doing with his athletes for NFL Combine. Same thing, like Scott Leach at Rhode Island. He's put out a ton of information on scores and stops in the way that he uses perception action, the way that he uses game based modeling to enhance his athletes' ability to perform in situations that relate to sport. Why wouldn't I go out and spend, the $90 or whatever that it requires for me to go and learn something. Or I just reach out to them and have a conversation about it. Again, like I think social media is a fantastic tool right now for coaches and young coaches, particularly, to see what's being done in the field. And I know that this isn't the first time that something like this has been said, but like every time I talk to people about this concept, my brain goes back to Joey G, who's now at Tulsa, but at FAU at the time, telling people that he's the best stealer in the country. And people say that all the time now. But in reality, the question becomes how much of what you're thinking is truly original. And if it's not truly original, where did it come from and how can I go learn from that source? Um, so then it turns into derivatives of each and scales of each to where I see this being done. How do I go up and down the chain by one tick to see whether or not that? Oh man,
There we go.
I was gonna
There
say
we
I
go.
got you
hopefully
now.
I think it froze for a bit. Hopefully it didn't ruin the entire
It was
podcast.
just no.
Um,
It was just like 5
No.
seconds.
Yeah,
Hunter
five
Hunter
seconds, man.
Hunter
All
Lakey
good.
called me,
Oh,
and I had to. Sorry, Hunt. You'll get in the video and the shout outs in the video, but I had to ignore your call so we could keep talking about it. But yeah, it turns into taking whatever concept that you see and going up and down the chain by one derivative, one notch, and seeing what happens when it gets there. And you're trying to think about new ways to do things and creating some sort of initiation of stimulus for the athletes. But like the conversation that I have the most with my GA right now and with most coaches is like we see these athletes a lot, but in reality you're probably training a particular quality somewhere between 1 and 2 times a week. So do I really need that much variation from a 1 to 2 time a week stimulus across an entire semester to continue to see progress? People talk about squeezing the toothpaste bottle as much as you can. Like, if we really thought that, let's say, the back squat, for example, was not giving the athletes what they needed from a strength standpoint, then you would see a lot more programs going away from a squatting pattern early on in an athletic career. Same thing goes for a hinge, a push, a pull. It all comes down to movement capacities and creating strength and range of motion through multiple planes. So, like learning new things, a lot of the new things that are coming out are just derivatives of other things that have been done before. And if they fit your scenario, great. If they don't, then they don't. But you keep it in the toolbox for when they do fit your scenario.
love that.
Dude, well said.
Yeah.
Are there any things, or I know there are. So what are some of the things that over your years in the field that you've like changed your mind on, um, or some things that you think about the field of performance that might be a little
Broken.
contrary to what other people think?
Yeah, it's a great question. Um, I at the beginning of your career, a lot of people are really scared of like posterior chain volume, and I'll say particularly with like the Nordic hamstring curl. Um, I think for one that the Nordic, even though it might be a little bit odd, like I started with my last year at Elon doing a Nordic variation every single day, whether it's concentric based, whether it's isometric based, whether it's long lever based, whether it's overload stimulus based, it doesn't matter. I'm going to get a micro dose aspect of it all the time. And I don't necessarily think we need to be scared of it because, again, when you look holistically at the sport, the high speed distance requirement requires me to be able to contract isometrically and eccentrically and concentrically continuously day after day after day after day. And so as long as my volume isn't necessarily overloading these athletes from what we can recover from, then the ability to continuously train it, I think, is very beneficial. From when I started as an intern, as a GA, um, the Olympic lift versus loaded jump variation type of thing. You guys have talked about it. Everybody talked about it. I love the Olympic lifts for myself, and I love to do the Olympic lifts. Like Brian and Christian will tell you that at Elon, I didn't run any Olympic lifts with any of my teams, but I'm in the facility almost every day doing full depth snatching, and the athletes see me do it, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to do it with my athletes in a particular capacity. I just don't know if the juice is worth the squeeze, and the time frame for me becomes, if I have 1 hour with these kids and I have to take 30 minutes to warm up and get a stimulus out of these cleans, is that worth my time? In my opinion, I don't think so. So I would rather sprint, jump, throw, and use variations of those aspects to get what I need out of my training to make that happen. Um, when I was at Elon, I didn't back squat my athletes. I think the front squat is way better. But in a particular capacity, now when I'm here at Shepherd, I back squat my linemen on the football team, but I also front squat them at the same time. And we also do a bunch of single leg oriented work. So from a like from a standpoint of having set standards of what is right and what is wrong, I don't think that exists. I think it's all context dependent, and I think it's all athlete dependent. It's all program dependent. Um, I think again, we play a small portion of the game with our athletes every day. That is, how do I make sure that this day is as good as possible? And in my opinion, I think intentionality of what we're doing and how we're doing it is more important than making decisions about what we're doing. Whether I choose to sprint a ton, whether I choose to jump a ton or not, I'm still going to see progress. But how am I making sure that the people around me are better? By making sure that they see me giving 100% effort all the time and being intentional about what I do, having the right mindset about what I do, being the number one thing. um, oh man, opinions. Like there's so much that has changed across like a timeline. By the time this video airs, my Instagram will show this because I try to be social media relevant at a Division II school, which is really hard. But I put out a bunch of information. Like this semester is the first time in my entire athletic career that I've had our inside the box type of guys throw a barbell in the air. Like we're doing upper body based plyometric work that is throwing a barbell from a bench press base position. And some people do it and some people don't. But if you would have asked me 5 years ago if I ever thought that that was a safe thing to do, absolutely not. Um, Turns into, okay, can these athletes get something out of upper body plyometric training more than using an 8-pound med ball? Probably. So how do I find that and make that work? Here's a variation that I'll try. And everything is trial and error. So again, much too long-winded of an answer, but here we are.
No, I
I
love
love it.
that.
Um, and like Christian kind of had mentioned, stuff that you like find contradictory. We've asked this a couple of times to our last couple of guests, and Christian brought this question up before, and I just love it. But, what's the problem that you see in the industry, whether it be from an exercise selection, a focus standpoint, the industry itself, or the people that are in it? Like, where do you see like the biggest problems that lie within the industry?
You know, this opinion might get some people riled up, to be honest, but I think people focus too much on other people. Right? Why am I worried about what this person is doing versus worrying about whether what I'm doing is right for the scenario, right for the context, and doing my athletes right? Like, again, there's so many opinions and there's so many thought processes. We don't sit in an office with a 5 to 6 staff group that goes over what's going on their daily, weekly basis. We don't see practice standpoints. We don't see scheduling meetings for again, 99.999% of the country. So why am I worried about what they're doing? Yes, I think that having conversation based, and like these two guys will tell you that I'm the first person to jump in on contradictory sentences and contradictory portions of conversation because I love taking both sides of the story and trying to get to the end goal. But having a locked down, concrete, decision based opinion on anything, I think you're losing out on the capability to learn if you think that anything is the absolute best way to get anything done. There's always context and there's always things that go on outside of the surface level opinion that we are going to have that have to be taken into account before you judge somebody for doing what they're doing.
Yeah, I love that. And I kind of had this same thought process yesterday. So yesterday we were at a meet, and we see big schools. You're there with like Duke, North Carolina. We were at Virginia Tech. We're seeing NC State, you know, ACC schools out the wazoo. We're seeing some smaller D2 schools, and you start to sit there and you're watching your races, and you're standing next to coaches that are either in your conference or well above you with different situations and different resources and athletes, and you just start to have a conversation. And that was like my big thing. It was like, ask a couple questions to these guys or some of these girls and that are coaches, and it's like, well, what are you kind of doing? And then like, we've always had this, and I really took this from Gabe from the first moment I ever met you, and it was, don't just take that at surface level, but like ask them the why. Like, why them to death? Because, you might get something out of that. And even if we don't agree on the answer of whatever they tell you, I might get something from that that might reinforce my opinion because I have a better understanding of where they came from. And there was that level of bit, and that really made me think of you in that aspect. Because I was like, there's something that can be gathered and achieved and learned from that, even if I don't agree with what they do, because their situation's just different. Um, so I mean, thank you for that, because that, like, I was in a situation and I was just like, in my head, I'm like, what would Gabe do? Like, you wouldn't have just sat there and like only focused on, especially in those downtimes, track meets are long, you're there for 10, 12 hours. You're not always coaching in that, 10, 12 hours. So I was like, I could play on my phone, or I could find another coach that's also kind of just hanging out because they're in the same events. And I'm going to ask a couple questions. And there was a lot of information to be gained in those conversations, like you said, like your biggest resource is conversations with other people.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of younger coaches can take value in that, and that's like, it's okay to just go ask a question. Most coaches love to have conversations, whether that's answering stuff about themselves or just talking about programming. People in the industry live and die by this. They want to have those conversations because then it helps them understand it too when they speak about it. Um, but not to get too far off the course here, because there is one more valuable question that I have to ask on the Bev Boys podcast. And I know we've talked a lot about performance, but you did mention your energy drinks and your consumption. We didn't drink energy drinks today. I had a coffee, but what's the Gabe Mason? What is your top three energy drinks? Your
Oh man.
go-tos. What's your perfect 10? What's your number two, and what's
Oh,
underneath it?
that's such a tough question. I did bring an energy drink for today, and I'll try it because I don't know if you guys have ever seen this like Monster Reserve thing.
No.
I've never heard of it before. I found it at a Dollar Tree. Um, it cost me 260. It's got some taurine in it, it's some L-carnitine in it, but it's got 120 calories and 32 grams of sugar, so people probably aren't gonna freaking like that a ton. But I love orange creamsicle stuff. And that one will probably reach that top tier pinnacle type of conversation. So, other phone call right off the bat, dog. Your boy getting ripped by phone calls. My brother just called me. So shout outs
He's
to
too
Corey
popular.
Mason too. Again, two phone calls in the podcast is probably a first for everybody
Yeah,
there.
this guy's popular.
100%. So um, I think top three energy drinks of all time. Right, number one. I have to do it because if I didn't, I would be a disservice to my brother and a best friend that I've known since I was 6 years old. His name's Nathan Franklin. He currently lives in Tennessee. But we used to train after school in high school together at a local gym. And we used to go to the gas station down the street before we went and get white monsters. And a white monster is it is undefeated. It's the go-to when I need a go-to. It is what it is. I can't say too much that's bad about it on any scenario, but if I need something, I'm gonna get a white monster. If I don't think that it's time to stray off the path a little tiny bit, when it's time to stray off the path, uh, the other two that I'll go to, um, one, again, I think orange creamsicle is a flavor that I didn't think I liked when I was a kid, but I love now. And I think Ghost has the number one orange based cream type of energy drink. Um, and then last on the list, I tried it again and I liked it more the second time. But I didn't, again, I was hoping that I could find it again, but I didn't travel out to Maryland this week. And that's where I found it the last time. So I couldn't bring it on the podcast. But Brian and I, again, you watch Brian have the sour black cherry new Ghost, and I love black cherry stuff, right? Like there's, and Brian and Christian can tell you this, like I'm also a big sparkling water guy. And every single day in some capacity I drink a sparkling water just because I like it, and then it gives me a water bottle to fill up afterwards. But the two flavors that I drink are black cherry and orange and cream the most consistently. And so orange and cream already hit. Black cherry, I tried the new sour black cherry Ghost the first time and I was not a fan. I really wasn't. I don't know whether it was the day that it was, what I was doing during it was the first week of this semester where I coached like 14 hours 4 of the 5 days in the week. And it was like the last day of the week. And I might have just not been in a great mood. But I didn't really like it. I didn't think that the flavor profile was there. I didn't even like get any sour flavor based from it. I couldn't really taste the black cherry. It just kind of tasted bland, which makes me think that it was the taste buds and maybe the psychology aspect of it. But I tried it again and I put it number three on the list holistically. And I know Brian gave it like a 9.9, I think.
Yes.
And I'm gonna give it a 9.2 on the list, but it still breaks the nine. Um, I love black cherry, but it's got to be below the white monster and below the orange and cream.
Dude, there you have it, folks. I mean, what? My my heart is so filled, not only because of the black cherry, but the level at which you went into. I mean, that's what we do here, right? We go on price, we go on can, we go on ingredients, and we go on taste and flavor profile. Gabe, going through the last 5 minutes of your talk, that is a Bev boy for life.
Yes.
BB4L.
BB4L. That's hilarious. Oh my gosh. Now I do want to try this podcast or try this on this podcast. So I'm going to try it here and I'm going to see if you
Okay,
guys can
we
hear
got
this as it goes again. So
Pop that top.
yeah, Monster Reserve Orange Dreamsicle flavor. It has 160 milligrams of caffeine per can, 120 calories. Again, 32 total grams of carbs with 28 coming from sugars, added sugars. It's on the top again there promoting L-carnitine and taurine and a ton of B vitamins. So if I was going to be a Bev boy for a day and talk about what this is like an intra workout type of energy drink afterwards. It's probably not the caffeine that you need to make sure that you're getting a stimulus to go and train. But if you have something to do after your training, most of that L-carnitine and taurine is based off of recovery capabilities or fat oxidation for you for fuel. So you take it intra, see if it substantiates anything that you're doing. Um, Again, it cost me 260 from the Dollar Tree, so that's kind of like contradictory. I don't really know what that actually means, but my Dollar Tree also isn't a like true Dollar Tree, so it's one of those things that you kind of play the game. But 260 isn't a bad price. The can looks like your normal monster, right? Orange, on the front end. It's got like this, cream based coloring on the bottom, which tells you it's going to be an orange and cream type of thing. And hopefully you guys can hear me pop this top. So we're going to see what happens. Ready?
Oh,
All right. That was pretty good. It looks,
A little fizzy.
yep, a little
I can hear
fizzy.
it.
Yep. You can hear the fizz. When you look down on it, it does have an orange coloring, but it kind of looks like a Coke. I'm not gonna lie, just like a Coca-Cola. Um, so we're gonna see what happens.
This is an expert level review, by the way. I mean,
yeah.
like,
Wow.
Yes, I
Isn't
spend
that?
too
this
much
is.
time listening to your guys' videos. That's how it goes. Support local business. Support your best friends, dog.
Yeah, man.
Uh, okay. Fizz on the beginning doesn't show up in the drink. So it's a little bit flatter than you might want. The flavor profile is very similar to the orange creamsicle ghost. However, that fizz aspect of it takes away from the expansion on both the orange flavoring and the cream flavoring. Now, I think this has a more cream based flavoring than a orange based flavoring. So I think if you like cream based drinks, strawberries and cream, blueberries and cream, stuff like that, that you'll like this because it's a hint of orange with more of the cream. Um, but from a like, would I buy this again standpoint, I don't think so. I think I would rather go with the Ghost, um, both from again like a macronutrient standpoint. I don't know if I want this 120 calories that comes with it for my energy drink, and I think Ghost provides a little bit more from it. From a caffeinated standpoint, I don't know if there's enough caffeine for me to induce a training based adaptation or a training based positive outcome from it. Um, and again, uh, I just don't know if the true flavor profile. I don't know why they call it reserve. Um,
I
that
think
would
the
be
Reserve series is like their specialty series.
yeah, I'd be interested. I don't know. I'd never heard of it before, so I thought it was cool. I'm gonna give it a solid 7.8.
Little
So
Okay.
high,
yes, I'm
but
gonna
I
give it
but
a
I gotta be
7.8.
honest here. Christian, I think we just got dunked on by Gabe. Like, I think that's an official like a resume submission.
Yeah, that was from the free throw line there. That was from the free throw
Dude.
line, cock back, jamming on your head. We gotta step it up after that. That was
We
good. That
do.
was good stuff.
My God, that was a wake-up call, like a slap in
Yeah,
the, that's like when you're going to like talk to a girl and your buddy comes in, he's just firing off jokes left and right, and you're like, I gotta step my game up.
Hey man, if it's not a competition in everything that we do, then what are we doing? If I'm gonna be on the Bev Boys podcast, and I'm gonna rock the Bev Boys gear, and I'm gonna be the best Bev Boy that I can. So
I mean, that's
that's who
an
you
early
are.
submission.
That's
If we have to rank guests on the level at which you are definitely up there when it comes to it.
yeah. Sorry, Kel.
100%.
Sorry, Jake. Sorry, Matt. I love you guys.
But I gotta kick your ass.
Did somebody order pizza because Papa's in the house?
Exactly. Exactly.
Oh
uh,
shoot.
Christian, should we wrap this thing up?
Yeah, dude, this was a yeah, let's wrap this thing up. I don't gotta say anything about how good this episode was. If you don't already know from watching it, then I don't know what to tell you. Gabe, huge shout out to you for taking the time and chopping it up. Definitely gonna be a part two some point in the future.
Absolutely.
Um, what do you want to plug your social medias for yourself and for Shepherd while we're at it?
Yeah. Yep. So Shepherd University, really Instagram is where we're the most prevalent. It's Rams Sports Performance. My own Instagram is Gabriel Mason 23. My Twitter is Gabriel underscore Mason 9. Um, please feel free to shoot me a follow or shoot me a DM if you need to. But in reality, follow the Bev Boys. That's what you really need to do. Make sure you're attending all of their videos.
This
And you
guy,
can find us at Bad Boys TV on Instagram.
subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Definitely like it. Leave us a positive review. That helps a ton. I don't know why, but it does. It pushes us into the podcast feeds. Um, Follow French at,
French underscore fit 40 on the gram.
and then myself, I am B Shakuski, BSZUTKOWSKI. I thought it was the right move to just make it simple and make it my name. The
Mhm.
problem is my name looks like somebody sneezed on a keyboard, so
I love
um
it.
but this was an absolute banger. Could not be any more perfect. If you guys want a hoodie just like Gabe's got or any of the other ones, go to bevboys.com. That is our website. Grab some gear, see some cool photos. But we will see you in the next one. Peace.
Peace.
Peace.